everybody, and welcome to Raising Vibrations and to the monthly forecasts. Hope you're doing well. And in today's video, I'm going to be helping you understand a little bit about aspects and phases. And this is my little piece on how I do my little forecasts in a unique way. So aspects and phases is a way that evolutionary astrology uses to measure the cycles that planets have in relationship to themselves, okay, and to other planets, pardon me. So what happens is you've got two planets, say for instance Pluto and Venus, and what evolutionary astrology will do is they will take those two archetypes and measure the relationship that they have between each other, and then from that measurement and from that relationship establish what type of phase and what type of evolutionary condition those planets carry within each other. And it's really fascinating because when you begin to measure your planets in relationship to other planets, you begin to see the development of how you actually experience your life through these aspects and phases. Now, I've got a little slideshow over here quickly that I want to show you in terms of what is the philosophy behind aspects and phases and what type of methodology do we use to actually measure this, okay? So I'm going to show you that right now. Okay, so what you're looking at is two pictures. On the left-hand side over here, you can see this is about life itself, okay? The first thing that we understand is that everything is in a cyclic formation. Everything is moving through time and space. And so because of that, it is not separate that when you look at two planets or three planets in a birth chart, that they are also in this life cycle. There is a life cycle that each planet has. And each planet in relationship to another is reflecting where that life cycle is. It's no different than measuring a new moon, a first quarter moon, a last quarter moon, and a full moon. Exactly the same thing. We just do it with planets now. And you can see that when you have a new moon, there's a new intention. When you have a full moon, we're coming into a halfway completion cycle. Again, phasal relationship and life, how it's evolving. The picture on the right-hand side reflects to us that everything is in relationship to everything else. Everything. Okay, it's like a revolving door. The moment that you walk through a revolving door, as you're moving outward, somebody from the outside is coming inward, and that door is revolving us around it. And it's like as one energy moves outward like that, another one's moving in. And everything is in a consistent relationship with everything else. And so because of that, it's natural for us to understand that when we look at planets in our birth chart, there's a natural cycle in terms of awareness, and there's a natural phasal relationship that exists between planets. And when we measure that, what we get is this beautiful harmonic dynamic of where we are in our consciousness and how that has been developed. Okay? And the next thing is how do we actually then establish and what methodology we do use in order to understand these aspects and phases? Well, in evolutionary astrology, you work with the planets, okay? So you've got Mercury, Venus, you've got Mars, you've got Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, okay? And then you have the sun. Now in this diagram, everything revolves around the sun. So when you measure something in evolutionary astrology terms, there's always a focal point, right? There's a focal point, and there's always a planet that's in relationship to that focal point. And the way that you understand what focal point you have to look at, you understand the relationship that these planets have to the sun. So the sun will always be a focal point, okay? So when you say, for instance, want to understand the phasal relationship between Neptune and Jupiter, well, then it has a little bit of a different cycle, but still the same. When you measure planets in relationship to each other, you're measuring the fastest moving planet in relationship to the slowest moving planet. The fastest moving planet in relationship to the slowest moving planet. So therefore, if I had to say, for instance, ask you, what is the phasal relationship between Jupiter and Neptune? You would go, Jupiter is the fastest moving planet, Neptune's the slowest moving planet, and so therefore, Neptune would be your focus point, because the slowest moving planet is always the focus point. And that's the key that I want you to take away from this conversation. When you measure aspects and phases in your chart, you're measuring two things. One, if you're measuring it against the sun will always be a focus point. So you're always looking for the focus point. And that will always be the sun if you're comparing it against something. Secondly, if you're comparing two planets with each other, you always measure the slowest moving planet as the focus point. So what happens now is you go, okay, I've identified that Neptune is the slowest moving planet. Jupiter's in relationship to it. And so then how do I understand how this works? Very simple. You get a little chart. And this is courtesy of the Evolutionary Astrology glossary, an ebook. And as you can see here on the chart, you've got this whole entire thing. New phase, crescent phase, first quarter phase, gibbous phase, all these phases. And each phase represents an aspect of development. So what you would do is you would take your slowest moving planet and put it at the 0. You would take your fastest moving planet and mathematically calculate the degrees of separation. Okay, so if Neptune's here and Jupiter, say for instance here, you would see that Jupiter is exactly 90 degrees, 90 clicks away from Neptune. And by understanding that phasal relationship, you would go, okay, it's a crisis in action square. And this is what I love about it so much. When we look at squares in astrology, we're like, oh, it's a square. But in EA, there's two types of squares. There's a crisis in action square and a crisis in consciousness square. And they're remarkably different in the sense. Okay, so you can actually try and read your chart. So, I've got Pluto square Mars as an example. The way that Pluto square Mars is going to work in your chart, if it was crisis in consciousness versus crisis in action, are going to be remarkably different. Now, when you have that power within your own awareness to apply that to your chart, you can actually see what you're specifically looking at in terms of your evolutionary development. And it's really, really fascinating. So the next time you begin to understand your chart in terms of aspects and phases, I highly encourage you to learn about aspects and phases, to go and investigate it. And part of my astrology school, I actually teach this when I educate anybody that's wanting to understand evolutionary astrology. So this is something that when you really want to get into astrology, it's something you don't like miss, because it's so empowering. I'll give you a quick example again, just before we jump into this, okay? Let's say, for instance, I have Jupiter and I'm measuring Mars and Jupiter, okay? We know that Jupiter is the slowest moving planet in relationship to Mars. So Jupiter stands there, and we will say that Mars is exactly 300 degrees, okay, away from Jupiter. In other words, Mars has gone all the way around the astrology chart like that because it's moving in that motion, and it gets all the way to that 300 degrees over there. Now, Mars is what is called in a last quarter phase in relationship to Jupiter. So when you look at Mars and Jupiter in the chart and you understand that phasal relationship, you can actually see that the soul's desires in this lifetime, this is the evolutionary astrology, the soul's desires in this lifetime are actually evolving through individuating, in other words, finding and breaking out of the mold of belief systems that they used in the past and allowing us to see perspectives from different unique points of views. That's the way that Mars and Jupiter, in a very plain way, would be operating in somebody's chart. Now, you come into a world that is very like homogenized and very sort of like, this is how truth is and this is what it's got to be. And you put somebody in that's natural tendency is to not follow those rules. Can you begin to see the way that we as human beings are so complex? That's why we have a lot of people in the world saying, well, I'm an atheist, because most of them have got phasal relationships that are breaking down, that are not listening to the general consensus. How much do we accept other people for having their own evolutionary degree? We don't understand it, so therefore we judge it. And this is the type of dynamics that we can get into when we understand more of who we are as a human race to alleviate the chaos that we've got. Food for thought. Hello, my Virgo friends, and welcome to the forecast for the month of March 2017. I hope you're well. And as always, I hope you enjoyed the introduction video. Just a basic understanding of how evolutionary astrology understands and maps the nature of cycles and how we're evolving through these aspects and phases in our chart. I actually teach aspects and phases as well, and I'm hosting an astrology class or school on the 11th of March. So if you're interested in wanting to finally get into the process of learning astrology on a professional level, or if you want to just do it for your own understanding, in the description below is a link and you can go check that out. And if you feel like you want to answer, if you want me to answer any questions you've got, shoot me an email and I'll be happy to be able to help you understand more about what you'll be able to get through this astrology school. Okay, so let's have a look what's actually going on for you in the chart this month, Virgos, in terms of your dynamics. Now, for me, I feel that this month is very much focused on the planet Venus. Okay, Venus is retrograde this month, and it goes retrograde on the 4th, 5th of March. And I feel that this month is really going to be focusing on what this Venus retrograde is. But before we do that, we've got to really understand the dynamics of what Pluto is doing for you, Virgo. And Pluto is unconsciously in your life evolving the nature of what is your special destiny. It's helping you become in touch with what is the meaning and purpose that you have come to do with your life, Virgo. So this is the nature of getting in touch with, this is what I'm here to do. This is my gift. This is my talents. And I'm going to invest my energy into this way of thinking as a way of supporting my evolution. And that's a big key player for you there. And of course, the focus in terms of that unconscious patterning is going to be around Venus. Okay. And because of Venus being the planet that is co-ruling the sign of Taurus and the sign of Libra, which is where Jupiter is, Jupiter plays a very important role in this process. So for you, Virgos, Jupiter's been moving through your second house of your astrological solar chart. And what this means for you is, of course, as I've explained before, it's deeply, deeply connecting with your needs, your essential needs. You're learning how to get in touch with what are the absolute things that you need that are going to align you with your special destiny. So its destiny is linked with needs. Okay, when you get in touch with that process, you'll be able to understand that all of our gifts, all of our talents are always supported in a way through true abundance. The trick here is that the special destiny is what gives us the feeling that we have total abundance because we're living through the heart. So right now it's moving through your second house. And of course, this is money. This is sharing. This is abundance where you've got finances, etc. And this is a lot of money coming into you. You're growing and you're putting value into your life. And it's a big thing. Okay. Now, of course, if we go ahead and look over at the planetary symbols that are moving us this month, your sun is still in your 7th house, okay? Or this sun, should I say, is still in your solar 7th house, along with Mercury, Neptune, South Node. And this is a big deal because, of course, relationship dynamics have been intense right now for you. And you've been really dissolving old relationships, and you've really had to sacrifice yourself to relationships in a way in which you've surrendered, and you've been there for others, you've served, etc. And now it's time to begin working on something new for you. Empowerment, okay? Empowering your heart. So we're going to shift from relationships to empowering your heart in this month as well. So if we go ahead and have a look, right? Mars, you can see there Venus is now retrograde, okay? And Mars enters Taurus, look at this, on the 9th, okay? There's Mars entering Taurus, and that is a big deal because, of course, like I said, Taurus is ruled by Venus, okay? This is the inner sense of identity. So it's not a coincidence that you've got Venus going retrograde and then Mars moving into Taurus, giving us a sense of, okay, we're going to focus on our inner reality, our inner essential needs, right? So Mars moves into Taurus and begins to obviously now move away from Uranus and allow us to get in touch with those essential needs. And then on the 12th of March, we've got a full moon that's happening. And this full moon that's happening, of course, in Virgo at 22 degrees is going to promote for us this deep, empowering experience. And this is that the solar eclipse, what happened to you on the solar eclipse, right? What happened around about the 26th, 27th of February, right? When we had that solar eclipse happen for us. Write in the comments below. Like, I'd love to hear your perspective. But that moment, those experiences that happen for you in the solar eclipse in Pisces, right? The new moon, right? Now, with the full moon that's taking place, there's an internalization of the insights, okay? It's like, you know, when you have a book and you read a book full of insights and then you don't strap the book to your body as a way of having these insights available to you so you can, you know, open it up. You leave the book, Pisces, let it go. You allow it to be wherever, and you carry the insights in your consciousness. You carry the insights in your memory. And so this full moon is going to be about the realization that the past is now dissolving and the insights that you bring forward into this new way of being, right? The new way of being is all of the stuff in Aries that's being promoted. Okay, so this is an integration process that will be taking place for us in the beginning of March, of course. And then on the 13th of March, Mercury actually enters Aries. And that's really, really significant because as Mercury enters Aries, we begin to shift from the Pisces stuff that I was talking about to the Aries stuff, which is the new direction. So we're letting go and we're bringing a new direction. And what we bring in the new direction is the insights, right? That was what the full moon was about. So Mercury entering Aries is, okay, now I'm going to start thinking about this new direction. And all of this is evolving the Venus retrograde stuff around your trust, your intimacy, how you share things, where your empowerment lies, and so on and so forth. And then on the 20th of March, we've got the Sun entering Aries. And again, another transition. The Sun entering Aries connects with the planets that are here, and we begin to lose this Pisces energy in the sense that now we're done with that stuff. And as the Sun enters Aries, we begin to pile on more of the, okay, right now I'm going to really not only have light shining on a new direction, but I'm really wanting to do this. And it's all about focusing on this Venus stuff again, as I said. Now, what's fantastic about the Sun entering Aries is that the moon will conjunct Saturn at the same time at 27 degrees Sag. And that's a big deal because, of course, Saturn in Sagittarius has been deeply questioning and asking us to understand the nature of our emotional development around our truth. So our truth, linked with our special destiny, allows us to see the world through the lens that we want to see it through. Okay? So that's being like radically changed. And of course, the moon hitting Saturn at the same time the Sun enters Aries brings into this process a deep internalization of this is how I want to empower myself. This is the self-identity that I want to use. Remember, for you Virgos, Saturn's been in your 4th house. So you've been dealing a lot with the home, dealing a lot with the parents archetype, the restrictions. And you'll notice that on the 20th, you'll actually have this sense of liberation from the home dynamic, but not in the sense where it's going to not end for you. It's just going to be, okay, this is happening. This is the purpose. This is where I'm going with this new direction. Okay. And then, of course, on the 22nd, I want to show you this intense squaring that's taking place. Also, Pluto and the moon are making a conjunction. So on the 22nd, please, guys, pay attention to what happens that day. This can be a day with extreme volatility as well, all right? Lots of T-squares taking place, a lot of like emotional letting go. And when that happens, look at the Sun and Venus. Look here. And they switch. So on the 25th of March, they switch. Sun now is ahead of Venus, Venus is after it, and the moon conjuncts the south node. So we have everything happen for us on the 22nd, which is about the emotional like shearing and letting go of old self-identities that no longer serve you anymore. And then the moon 2 days later or 3 days later hits the south node of Neptune, and the Sun and Venus switch place. And that means this is where we create the new direction and we finally let go of the past. We create the new direction and we finally let go of the past, about relationship dynamics and intimacy. And then on the 27th, we've got the new moon that's taking place for us in Aries. And that's when I feel the energy is going to be entirely supporting this new process. It's go time. On the 28th, it's go time. It's like you've had your experiences, you realize what it is that you want to be doing with your life, and you'll start to get in touch with this new sense of empowerment. For you, it's all about empowering your heart through understanding your needs and then going through and recognizing your limitations. And as you go through those limitations, you basically look at everything around you. This is where I want to improve. This is what I want to build on. This is because of my heart's journey, and this is why I value it. Okay. All right, guys. I hope that this gave you some direction for the month of March. And don't forget, if you're still interested in wanting to learn astrology, like I said, I've got my classes starting on the 11th of March. And other than that, have a fantastic month. Take care, Virgos. Bye.